Tim, thanks for the opportunity to speak here today. It's going to be, I'd like to introduce you to Wits, which is a small cap company on the ASX. Next one, please. Please read the disclaimer and then, familiarize yourself with that, please. We can go to the next one. All right. Just, Wits is like I mentioned, it's a small cap mining company on the ASX. We sit with two strong projects that we believe. One is based in South Africa, and then the other one is in WA. In the South African project, we believe that we've got a very strong resource here. We've got a 3.5 million ounce JORC compliant resource. Of which I think is significant is that 63% of that sits in a measured and indicated category. So, it gives us high confidence of planning our mining forward. We embarked on a scoping study a couple of years ago, and from that we then derived 5 mining areas, and we decided to put them into stages into operation. So we recently announced our stage 1 DFS result, and that came out very strongly. I'll get into that in a bit more detail. But on top of the DFS, we also have the opportunity for early mining initiative, what we call. And from that, we hope to produce about 5,000 to 8,000 tons a month, starting early next year. Our feasibility have indicated that, we can start off with a relatively low capex, and also a very competitive all-in sustaining cost. And ultimately, we want to grow this ore body in South Africa up to about 90,000, between 80 and 90,000 ounces per annum. And then we've got about a life of mine in excess of about 20 years. So we've got a strong project here in South Africa. Also in WA, we've got a 100% owned project there. Last year, we spent time and money on aerial surveys. We've just completed a ground survey, and we've got a ground truthing team on site at the moment. And the whole objective of that plan is to compile a drill-ready program for next year. And then hopefully when the drilling season starts next year, we can then enter the area and start drilling. Next slide, please. This is just a quick overview of our current company structure. We recently raised some money, so we're in a fairly strong cash position. This last point there that I just need to point out is our BE ownership here in South Africa. That's a requirement, and we are fully compliant here in South Africa to continue with this mining operation. And I just want to point you towards our current market cap and our current enterprise value per ounce, which I think is at the moment we've quite undervalued. And as we then progress the project, we hope that our valuation will increase over time. Next one. Right. This is our company structure. I just want to point out that our chairman, Michael Quinnett, has been on the board here for about 13 years. We've got a prominent mineral rights lawyer here in South Africa, Hume Scholes, that's been assisting us. And then also we've got that lady Tozama, who's been instrumental in obtaining regulatory approvals for us. So if you look at this team here, we've got a very strong team, experienced in Australia and also experienced in South Africa, that can push these projects going forward. Next one, please. A quick overview of where the project in South Africa is located. It's located about 15 kilometers to the west of the Joburg CBD. It's in a world-renowned mining area. That area, the Wits Basin, or the Witwatersrand Basin, has been delivering ore for the last 100 years. You can see there, about 247 million ounces have been taken out of that area already. And if you look to the right-hand side on the screen there in the bottom, you can see where the Wits project area is located. I need to point out that that's also it's a historical mined out area, and so we are very familiar with the geological conditions as well as the other technical conditions there. There's a couple of old shafts in that area, and our plan is to reopen and rehabilitate some of those shafts and then continue on with the mining. That specific mine that we want to focus on initially was closed in 2000, and we've had initial inspections there in November this year, where the guys have gone in. They were able to walk around there freely, so we've got good geological conditions there to continue mining going forward. Next one, please. As I mentioned there before, we've got a 3.5 million ounce resource, and you can see there, of which 2.5 million ounces sits in the measured and indicated categories. And also, as part of our scoping study that I spoke about earlier, we were able to identify 5 key mining areas. Now you can see them on the screen on the right-hand side, where we've got the Tala Shallows, Tala Deeps, the Bird Reef East, the Main Reef, and then the Bird Reef Central. These mining targets sit on different reef types, and we decided from our scoping study to start focusing on the Tala Shallows first, and then roll over into the Main Reef, then Bird Reef, and then going to Tala Deeps, and then leaving the Bird Reef Central for last. If you go to the next one, please. So from our scoping study, we were able to derive an overall production profile, where you can see there on the screen that we comfortably run between 80 and 90,000 ounces for about 17 years. And, that's our overall structure. You can see the 5 stages of mining on that graph. Now, what we've done is we've taken the first one, the Kimberley Shallows one, or the Tala Shallows project, which is the sort of the bright blue one there on the left-hand side, and we've turned that into a DFS. Now, if you go to the right-hand side, you can see just that one project will deliver about 50 to 60,000 or 55,000 ounces per annum for about 10, 15 years, So it's just that one project is quite a significant project. And then our plan is now to start adding the other stages of mining. We're finishing off some geological work now, and then we will roll over into feasibility studies for the next one is the Main Reef, and then the Bird Reef, and then the Tala Deeps. So those studies will kick off later in the year once we've completed some further geological work. So there is a significant ore body here that we're now putting into operation. We've just started with the bush clearing. So, we hope to gain a couple of months on the development of this mine. Next one, please. The feasibility study that we recently announced, we were able to declare reserves of about 280,000 ounces, which is quite exciting for us. So that underpins our initial mine plan. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a 17-year life of mine just from that stage 1. We've got a very competitive all-in sustaining cost of about $11.45 US dollars per ounce. And the reason why we mention the steady state production is that we've got such a long life of mine that it's important to note that once we are through the build-up process, we would be running at about $10.27 US dollars per ounce, which makes it very competitive here in South Africa. And if you put everything together, you end up with a pre-tax NPV of about 150 million US and an IRR of 35%. So those are exciting numbers, and it's important to understand that, that's just stage 1 of 5. And, as I mentioned there, the development of the other stages we will then roll out, as I mentioned earlier. The picture on the right-hand side just indicates that we would start with the blue and yellow mining areas. The blue is actually what we call the K9A reef, and then the yellow one is the K9B reef, and they sit on top of each other like this. They are probably about, they dip at an angle of about, 45 to 50 degrees, and, they're about 5 to 7 meters apart. Thank you very much. Next one. All right, the other exciting project that we've got, as I mentioned, there is our Mount Cecilia project in the Patterson province in Western Australia, where we've just completed our aerial survey. And from our aerial survey, we were able to identify 8 targets, and you can see where it's located. It's right in the middle of where everybody is exploring. So we see that as a very highly prospective opportunity for us, which we want to just push up the value curve. Next one, please. Sorry, Tim, I know it's, there we go. I just want to quickly take you through the 8 targets that we've identified, with the 3 or the 4 targets that we've now subjected to ground surveys, which we will now push further into our ground truthing with the team being on site now, and then hopefully over then drill ready targets in the coming months, which we will then share with you guys. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Jack. And just to explain, you are sitting in South Africa there, so there is a little bit of an internet delay when we roll those slides through. So thanks for your patience.
Okay, no problem, Tim. Thanks.
Now, there's just some questions here, quite a few questions. As per the DFS announcement, the completion of the DFS will now enable some discussions with financiers to accelerate the development. Can you give us an update on potentially where those discussions are at?
Sure, Tim. We've set ourselves the target to have a mix of financial instruments to fund this project. We've already had extensive discussions with financial advisors and also with some financial institutions that would fund this project. So I'm not in a position to announce anything yet, but we've had extensive discussions. What also is in our benefit is, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we've raised a bit of money a couple of weeks ago. That's now putting us into a position to start with our early works, and then that can delay our fundraising discussions until we know that we've got the right mix of funding together.
And so what are the potential opportunities, this question here, to increase the resource level from the kind of measured inferred from 3.55 million?
Look, we've actually made an announcement this morning of where we were able to take our mining right area, as I showed on the previous slide, and we've added a big chunk to the south of that area. So we've got acceptance here in South Africa yesterday from our mines department to start with a prospecting right process. So we will be, over time, over the next coming months, we will be adding more resources as we refine them going forward. It's like I mentioned, it's from a historical mining area where a portion of it was not JORC compliant, and we will now make them JORC 2012 compliant and then bring them back into our resource base. So there's big opportunity to add more resources and substantial resources back into our resource statement.
And what's the political environment over there at the moment in terms of the regulations, and also you've got the BOE ownership? Can you give some colour on that?
Look, yeah, let me just reframe that question. We've had some riots here a couple of months ago, which we all dealt with here in South Africa. It was one flare up and then it got closed down very quickly by the security forces. And at the moment, everything here in South Africa is stable. And, with regards to security of tenement, we've always said here in South Africa that, any mining right, any prospecting right is safe. It hasn't been taken away from anybody. And the legal system here in South Africa still works very well. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a prominent mining lawyer on our board, Hume Scholes, who's advising us through all the steps. And, we've we've been through all the regulatory processes, so we've got a very secure mining right at this point.